So I'm gonna break down the game of life, how I see it, how I understand it, because if you don't realize life is a game and you treat it like a journey, you're gonna feel lost. Most people are just floating through life hoping things work out, but when you see life as a game, you start asking the real questions. Who's playing? What are the rules? What's the goal? And when you don't have that clarity, pain hits harder. Anxiety, depression, grief, envy, anger, etc. I'm not saying that those things won't hit, but without purpose, they stick longer. Clarity doesn't erase pain, but it does take the weight off. That's why knowing and understanding this matters. This will be a multi-part series, and to understand how this game plays out, you gotta know who the players are and what side they're on. So let's get into it. This is how I like to look at life. Like I'm no longer in the mix, but just a watcher standing in outer space observing all the chaos and confusion. Earth is the board, and on either side, we have heaven and hell, God versus Satan. If you got maps on your phone, you can pull this up later and reflect on it. So on the left, we got God, not just a presence, but the source, the one who created time, breath, logic, and love. He made the game, set the rules, then step back. Why? Because love without choice isn't real love. He wanted us to choose him freely, so he gave us free will. So every time someone chooses light, that's 1 point for God. Every time someone chooses darkness, that's 1 point for the devil. A lot of people feel like God is absent, but I'm here to tell you that's just simply not the case. He just can't intervene directly, because if he oversteps, free will ceases to exist. So what does he do? He sends help instead. First we have the angels. Messengers, warriors assigned to protect, guide, and sometimes warn. But they only move if heaven grants permission. No forcing, just influencing. Then we have the prophets. Humans, chosen to speak hard truths. People hated them, mocked them, even killed them, but they were proof God was not silent. And finally, God himself came, not with thunder, not with fire, but in the flesh, who we know today as Jesus Christ. The only one who beat the test, gave us the cheat code, which is faith, obedience, surrender. Now, on the other side, we have the adversary. Satan, Lucifer, the devil, whatever you want to call him. He didn't create the game, but he used to be near the throne, and that's how he learned how to bend it. So he knows how heaven works. He knows the rules better than we do, and he uses that knowledge not to win, but to keep us from winning. And just as God has angels, he has fallen angels. Now, moving on to the prophets. Because again, just like God has prophets, Satan also has prophets. And they're the ones on your screen. Celebrities, influencers, political figures, even some preachers who use God's name but push the devil's message. And this ain't new. A long time ago, men took what was meant to be a relationship and turned it into a religion. Christianity got twisted. It started when Rome institutionalized faith, turning it into Catholicism, a system built on hierarchy, ritual, and control. And even though the church split later into Eastern and Western Christianity, Greek Orthodox on one side, Roman Catholic on the other, both still drifted. Eastern Christianity got lost in mysticism and tradition. Western Christianity got wrapped in politics and performance. Then came the denominations: Protestant, Baptist, Pentecostal, Methodist, Mormon, etc. All claiming to be different, but still copying Catholic structure. Same setup, different branding. And now, most churches, they all look the same. A stage, a worship concert, a pastor rambling for an hour. But the early church, it didn't look like that. They met in homes, they broke bread, prayed together, spoke truth, shared everything. It wasn't a production, it was a family. The pastor wasn't a celebrity, he was a servant. And a church, it wasn't a place you went, it was who you were. But the devil knew if you couldn't kill the movement, he could corrupt it from the inside out. And that's what we're seeing today. So now we have thousands of churches, but barely any truth. False prophets preaching prosperity gospel, telling you God's goal is to make you rich. Others teaching hyper grace, removing the need for repentance or obedience. Then we got the new age blending, mixing the Bible with crystals, astrology, and good vibes only. And of course, the celebrity preachers, more concerned with followers than faith. These are Satan's prophets, actively pushing a message that distorts truth, glorifies self, and leads people further from God. So they're doing their job, twisting truth, making good look evil, making evil look normal, and worst of all, making you numb. Now, with that being said, not every preacher is a false prophet. Some genuinely believe they're serving God, but still part of the problem. Let's call them surface level shepherds. They're not false prophets, but they're not helping either. These preachers, they're the most common in churches today. They quote scripture, but never break it down. No revelation, no conviction, no urgency. Just a long-winded lecture with no real impact. So you might be on God's side, but they're not reaching the lost. They don't challenge you, they don't prepare you, they don't equip you. So church becomes a routine, not a place of power. So again, they might love God, but they're not equipped to feed the spiritually starving. And that's a different kind of problem. So whether it's deception or distraction, the goal is the same. Keep you numb. Because if you choose neither side, by default, you've chosen to side with the devil. And that's the unfortunate part. So you gotta be alert, you gotta be aware. Because the devil, he's playing for keeps. This is chess, not checkers. Now, last but not least, you got you, me, and every other human being walking this earth. We're the pieces, not pawns, but players with a choice, left to our own devices with nothing but free will, curiosity, and the ability to create. You and I weren't meant to watch this game. We were made to fight in it. Now, me, I didn't always know this. I started out as someone lost, just wandering aimlessly in the fog. And then I became a watcher. The more clarity I gained, the more I stepped back, observing the game, trying to understand how it all works, and eventually it started making sense. So now, I'm no longer just watching. I've seen enough, I've chosen my side, and I'm actively participating again. But this time, I'm fighting the good fight. I'm fighting for something real. I'm fighting for truth. And that's the ultimate choice. Because once you understand the game and choose your side, that's when you stop drifting. That's when the fog clears, and that's when life actually starts to mean something. And then you can start living with real purpose. So this is part 2 of my multi-part series, Game of Life. The rules of the test and what are we really being judged on. So most people don't realize we're not just living life, we're being tested. But it's not about religion or being a good person or following rules blindly. It's about one thing: who has your heart? That's what the whole test is about. Not perfection, but loyalty. Not appearances, but who do you trust when the pressure hits? When God made humans, he gave us something wild. We were meant to rule earth, not as gods, but as reflections of God. Earth was never Satan's to rule, but through deception, he tricked mankind into handing over dominion. From that moment on, the world came under his influence, not because he took it by force, but because we gave it up. And once dominion left humanity's hand, God couldn't just take it back. That's important, because if God broke his own rules, the test would be rigged. Now, here's the part most people miss. Dominion had to be reclaimed by a man, but it couldn't be any man. It had to be a sinless man. And the problem was, no one was sinless. And Satan knew that. So for generations, he corrupted bloodlines, pushed idol worship, provoked violence, and even cheated by sending fallen angels to mix with humans, trying to make sure a sinless savior could never be born. That's why God sent the flood, to reset the board, because Satan broke the terms. But after the flood, God added new restrictions, shortened lifespans, scattered languages, shrunk the size and strength of animals. Why? Because mankind had proven just how dark we could go. God wasn't being harsh. He was limiting our ability to destroy ourselves before the right time. And when the time was right, God enters in his own game as Jesus, fully man, fully God. He qualifies to reclaim dominion as a man, but lives sinless to avoid Satan's grip. If Jesus had sinned even once, dominion couldn't have been restored, and the whole plan would have collapsed. That's why Satan tried everything: temptation in the wilderness, pressure from religious leaders, even using people closest to Jesus to cause doubt. But Jesus never cracked. He lived a life none of us could, and then died a death none of us wanted. Here's the genius part. Satan thought killing Jesus would secure his power, but it did the opposite. Jesus' death wasn't a defeat, it was a legal transaction. The sinless blood of a broken man broke the curse, reclaimed dominion, and fulfilled God's justice. What Satan thought was a win was actually his loss. Now that dominion has been reclaimed, God isn't testing us on how religious we are. He's asking, will you trust me or trust yourself? Will you follow truth or follow comfort? Will you choose me even when the world offers you power, pleasure, and pride? It's a heart test. Every action, every word, every motive follows from what you worship. And whether you live 100 years, 30 years, it all leads to one question: whose side are you on? If life is a test, then pain is part of the test, but not the kind you can avoid by doing everything right. Even Jesus suffered, even prophets begged for death, even righteous people felt abandoned. So why does God feel silent when it hurts the most? Let's be honest. Waiting can break people. When your prayers go unanswered, when healing doesn't come, when people you trusted walk away, it starts to feel like you're cursed, not chosen. And delay makes you question everything. Am I being punished? Did I miss my purpose? Is God even listening? But here's the truth. Silence doesn't mean absence. In a normal game, silence means the controller's off. But in this game, silence means the test is live. Sometimes God equips you before the test through wisdom, truth, or a past season. Sometimes he explains it after, when the dust settles and hindsight hits. But during the test, that's when his silence feels the loudest. Why? Because your response has to be real, not just a reaction of comfort, not just based on signs and blessings, but a choice, a real decision born out of faith, not just feelings. On the cross, God cried out through the body of Jesus, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Matthew 27:46. That wasn't doubt, that was separation. It was the first time God had ever felt cut off from himself, because in that moment, he didn't just carry sin, he became it. 2 Corinthians 5:21. And sin can't stand in the presence of holiness. So the divine connection between heaven and his human body had to part. But here's the crazy part. If God hadn't limited himself, the cross wouldn't even have been possible. He compressed his eternal nature into human form, like shrinking a massive file to fit a USB stick. He reduced himself to walk among us, suffer with us, and bleed for us. Because if his full glory had been revealed, the entire world and the fabric of time and space would have vaporized at the sight of him. That's how far he went to relate to us, to feel what we feel, to finish the mission. Pain exposes what we believe, who we trust, what you're running from, and what you're really after. It's not just suffering, it's a spotlight, not to shame you, but to show you what's real. Because God doesn't want followers who are only loyal in the light. He wants the ones who choose him in the dark too. That's a real relationship. Pain has purpose. Sometimes it purifies, sometimes it protects, sometimes it prepares. It's not always the enemy, it's often the tool. Not every struggle is a punishment. Sometimes it's training, sometimes it's proof you're in the game. Think about it. Even though he was God's son, he learned obedience through what he suffered. Hebrews 5:8. So if God in human form had to go through pain to complete his mission, why would we expect to avoid it? If God feels silent, don't stop moving. If life hurts, don't assume you failed. Delay is not denial, silence is not abandonment, and pain is not proof that God forgot you. Sometimes it's just part of the test. And if he trusted you with this part of the journey, you're stronger than you think. If life is this hard and God is this far, why even play the game? What's the point of holding on, doing right, staying faithful, if it feels like evil people win and good ones get crushed? That's the question every soul asks at some point. And God answers it, not with comfort, but with reward. Not just earthly blessings, not just inner peace, but eternal rewards, measured in a currency this world can't comprehend. In the Bible, crowns are mentioned over and over, not just as symbols, but as actual rewards given to those who overcome. There's not just one crown, there's multiple crowns. The crown of life for those who endured trials, James 1:12. The incorruptible crown for disciplined living, 1 Corinthians 9:25. The crown of righteousness for loving his return, 2 Timothy 4:8. The crown of glory for feeding others spiritually, 1 Peter 5:4. The crown of rejoicing for those who led others to truth, 1 Thessalonians 2:19. These are not just metaphors, these are status, authority, and honor in the age to come. Every decision you make in the fog, every sacrifice, every time you say no to the enemy and yes to God, it echoes forever. This isn't about ego, it's about inheritance. When God gives you dominion, he's not handing out participation trophies. He's preparing you to reign. If we endure, we shall also reign with him. 2 Timothy 2:12. Your obedience now shapes your authority then. Think about it like training royalty. You're not just surviving Earth, you're being forged for a kingdom. So when you get hit with trials, temptation, betrayal, and loneliness, that's not proof God forgot about you. That's proof he's preparing you. This is why Jesus had to live a sinless life. Because dominion over the earth was given to man, then handed to Satan through Adam's disobedience, and the only way it could be reclaimed legally was by a sinless man. No sin, no legal claim from Satan. That's why God had to become a man, that's why Jesus had to endure pain, and that's why the cross wasn't weakness, it was the greatest trap ever set. He took death and sin and didn't break, so Satan lost the claim, and dominion returned to God through a man. We're not the Redeemer, but we are a reflection of him. Every time you resist evil, every time you walk in love, truth, and discipline, you're reclaiming spiritual territory that was once lost. You're echoing what Jesus already won, and building your own reward for eternity. The Bible doesn't promise ease in this life, but it promises this: what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no human mind has conceived, the things God has prepared for those who love him. 1 Corinthians 0.29. That's the prize. But in contrast, Satan offers rewards too, but his rewards are temporary, addictive, and soul draining. They look good now, but they expire fast and come with chains. Here's what he offers and how they really look. Fame without peace. That's why so many celebrities, though on top of the world, are miserable. They have no privacy, paparazzis follow them, strangers feel entitled to their time. Their every move is judged, dissected, and used against them. Wealth with no rest. Millionaires, billionaires can't sleep. Their mind races with anxiety. They're overworked, paranoid, or drowning in lawsuits. They built empires, yet still fear losing it all. Pleasure that numbs, not heals. Drugs, porn, hookups, overeating. It feels good in the moment, but leaves you more empty than before. So you go back for more. And before you know it, you're addicted to your own escape. Power that isolates. CEOs, politicians, influencers. They rise to the top and get lonelier. They control rooms but can't trust a soul. Everyone wants something. Real friendship becomes rare. Influence that manipulates. Platforms grow, but truth gets twisted. People say what pleases the algorithm. They build followings by feeding lies, not offering truth. They become puppets for agendas they barely understand. Comfort that kills conviction. Life feels fine, so you stop reaching. You stop praying. You stop growing. And one day you realize you're spiritually numb. It's a cheap counterfeit designed to distract you from the real reward. The devil doesn't always destroy with pain. Sometimes he overfeeds your flesh until your spirit falls asleep. You trade your own crown for comfort and don't even realize it. If this world is all there is, then pain wins. But if eternity is real, then every moment you stayed faithful counts. So don't quit the game. You're not just playing for survival. You're playing for reign, for crowns, for a purpose that death can't touch and betrayal can't erase. The world may not see your worth, but heaven keeps the score. And the next time envy creeps in, you scroll past that billionaire or that model with the perfect life. When you see the mansion, the applauses, the lifestyle, and wonder why your obedience feels like silence, just remember what they gained came at a price. They laugh on red carpets, but cry in hotel rooms they don't call home. They may have followers by the millions, but not one soul they can truly trust. They may have yachts, awards, and designer names, but no rest, no roots, no peace. It looks like they're living, but many are just performing their own funeral in slow motion, smiling through spiritual decay. Don't envy a soul who trades eternity for applause. Don't crave what's already collapsing, because crowns aren't forged in comfort, they're forged in fire. And everything you suffered in secret, God saw it, and he's not unjust. So hold the line, not because it's easy, but because it's eternal. If you've ever asked, why does it feel like your mind is constantly under attack? You're not crazy, you're not weak, you're not broken. You're targeted, because creativity is spiritual. It's the closest we've come to God's image, not in looks, but in function. God created, we were made to create. But that gift is a threat to the one who lost it. See, Satan has power, but he can't create. He can only mimic, copy, twist, corrupt. That's why he uses people. He needs vessels. So he offers fame, status, beauty, and clout. Not because he values those things, but because he needs your gift to feed his agenda. He doesn't want your songs, he wants the souls they influence. He doesn't care about your voice, he cares about your platform. Because if he can hijack your creativity, he can steer millions without them ever realizing who's driving. So why does God allow it? Why give us a gift so powerful if it just becomes a war zone? Because God doesn't raise puppets. He raises warriors, priests, creators with a backbone. And the only way to prove the value of a gift is to test the integrity of the one holding it. This is why some of the most creative minds suffer the most, why prophets were rejected, why artists feel misunderstood, why some of the greatest songs were written from the deepest pain. Pain doesn't mean you're broken, it means your gift is being forged. Take Kanye for instance. Whether you love him or hate him or feel conflicted, you can't deny the spiritual war behind the art. One minute he's calling himself a god, the next he's making gospel albums, then he's building idols again. Why? Because creativity without submission always leads to confusion. The gift stays powerful, but the compass gets corrupted, and confusion is the devil's playground. Now, look at Juice WRLD, personally one of my favorite artists. The voice, the flow, the reach wasn't accidental. It was a gift from God, but instead of covering it up, he battled demons in front of the world. He knew what was chasing him. You could hear the cry for help in his lyrics. You could feel the war behind the melodies, the drugs, the love, the shows. Peace stayed out of reach. Why? Because the enemy doesn't care how rich or how famous you get, just as long as your soul stays starving. And in the end, some artists survive the storm and some don't. So if you can sing, if you can write, if you can design, build, perform, speak, or shape hearts, that's not random. That's evidence that God's trusting you with influence. And that's exactly why Satan stalks you. The enemy doesn't waste time on empty souls. He targets vessels that were meant to carry light. So if your mind feels like a battleground, you're probably carrying something eternal. Don't trade your gift for a quick check. Don't give your crown away for attention. Don't let the devil rent your voice for his lies. Because what God gave you wasn't just for survival, it was for impact, for freedom, for truth. And even with all the success, you weren't made to entertain the world, you were made to wake it up. So write the song, film the video, speak the truth, and protect your compass. Because in this war, creators are either candles or smoke machines.